We are live. Welcome back. You've got Jamie here from the Plant 52 Not Kitchen. Today we are with a special guest, Jesus and his disciples. Just kidding. Happy Canada Day. Today is going to be a little bit different because it is going to be a tribute to a mentor of mine, which I never say lightly. But this is going to be a tribute to Dr. John McDougall, who recently, unfortunately, passed away peacefully in his sleep last weekend. So last week, this time, I was outside, had no idea that this had happened. The very next day, right in this little corner, I got a terrible phone call and learned of his, I'm not going to say untimely passing because he had a massive stroke when he was 18. And he says, and other people say, that should have killed him. He was left with a lifelong disability. I met him a few years ago, and I'll tell you the story of John McDougall. But first, I'm going to tell you his 3 greatest lessons, because this is the most important information, and this is what he would want all of his Starchivore army to share. Okay, so I've got 3 lessons for you from John that are just amazing. And what I'm going to do is link a potato mastermind because he is Dr. Potato, right? Dr. Potato. And I'm going to link his mastermind all about the humble potato in the description because it's a 2-parter. It's long. It goes deep. He cites scientific studies and all the rest. He does the doctor talk. I'm going to just summarize it and pull, in my experience with John McDougall, what I have learned and take from him and spread on to others because it's the most useful information that I can share. So number 1, got 3 things for you. Number 1 is the magic pill. You may have heard me say this before, but John McDougall is the one who made the nature-made magic pill come alive for me. So he is Dr. Potato for a reason. He loves potatoes. That's his favorite food. And in these masterminds, if it's a little TLDR, I'll give you a TLDR moment here, okay? So he will say, he's the author of a book called The Starch Solution, first of all. It's an excellent read. And if you really want to learn about health and your body and how we should eat and what is going to be the best for us in terms of our health and how we feel, for weight loss, for healing all kinds of things, please read The Starch Solution. It was published years ago, but it's still on the top 100 bestsellers list on Amazon for vegan books. So even though John was a strict vegan, he always says it's not all or nothing. He and his team always say that. So it's not like we are a vegan nation here. And I don't pretend to transform anybody into a vegan. I'm not one myself, so that would be weird. Anyway, I am a starchivore though. Yeah, I love me my starch. So he's the author of The Starch Solution. And in this book, although he never says that the potato is the magic pill, it was actually one of their patients that went to their medical director, Dr. Anthony Lim, excellent doctor, who said, you guys actually are lecturing about the magic pill. This is all that this woman synthesized. And that is just a perfect way to encapsulate John's teachings, and his high recommendation ultimately is to eat starch, his favorite starch, potatoes. He always says rice, corn, potatoes, beans, peas, and lentils. So just giving you examples of different starches. There are 4,000 varieties of potatoes around the world. If you look at human civilization for thousands of years, we have eaten a lot of potatoes, we as in the human race. They're prolifically grown in South America and North America. We might think of the Irish when we think of potatoes. McDougall, Irish name. My greatest puppy named Skids, ironically, his middle name is McDougall. Yeah, Skids McDougall. Anyway, John would always say that the potato is complete nutrition. Now, when he says that, what he means is that all of the nutrients that we need to power our bodies for optimal health is in the potato. But I love that he simplifies all food. So he simplifies food as This is the soil. This is ground level. Anything grown underground, he would call an underground storage organ, and it's storing energy until, let's say, the spring, whenever it needs that energy to actually flower and produce fruit or plants or food for us. There are 300,000 edible plants apparently on the planet for us, and apparently 4,000 varieties of potatoes. That's a lot. It's a lot of plants. So anything that is grown below ground, and I'm fascinated by this still, is supposed to have all of our nutrition, all of our minerals, what? All of our vitamins, all of our macronutrients like our carbs, fats, and proteins. So when I look that up, and I love using Chronometer, I do in fact see things that are grown underground, like beets, turnips, potatoes, sweet potatoes, carrots, ginger, garlic, cassava, like so roots, tubers, stems, those things that are grown underground, I punch it into Chronometer. If you put in enough of a quantity, like you can't just put 1 gram, but if you put like 200 grams or 2 cups or something like that, you will eventually start seeing every single vitamin, mineral, and macronutrient light up, which means that those chemicals or minerals or nutrients are in those plants. So that blew my mind. So there are plants that grow under the soil, underground, and there are plants that grow above ground. And John would say that plants that are grown above ground, they do very well. They're packed full of nutrients, but many of them lack vitamins A and C, whereas everything underground has vitamins A and C. He says potatoes have superior vitamin C content. And I had to look it up. Is that true, John? Even now? So I look it up. I punch it into Chronometer. What do you know? He says they're loaded with vitamin C. Chronometer measures 3 medium potatoes boiled with skin on. John would say the research says whether we eat them with the skin on or off, it doesn't really make a huge difference. So it's up to your preference. 3 medium potatoes gives me 72 milligrams of calcium on chronometer.com, which is 96% of my daily need for vitamin C. 3 medium potatoes. So that's interesting, isn't it? Anyway, so yeah, I love the way John describes all plant foods as growing above ground and below ground. And he makes it so easy. It seems so simple. But today, in the world of nutrition and health and what should we eat and how should we eat, it's so complicated. Oh, we're not getting this nutrient and that nutrient. That's why we need these supplements. And you have to spend $120 a month on these special supplements. And you have to constantly take them and probably take them for the rest of your life. No. If we have a nutrient deficiency, I totally believe in supplementing to get a boost and get that nutrient deficiency met. But if on the whole, we're eating a bunch of whole plants, and if that's true, all the nutrients are there, especially the underground storage organs, doesn't that blow your mind? Doesn't that kind of make you feel like all this crap that is online may be a load of crap? Of course, I believe in 2 truths and a lie. Lots of good arguments have a lot of truth baked into them, and that's why they're so convincing, and that's why we're compelled by them. But does that necessarily mean that it's true? The whole story? Maybe something is left out. This is why we are so confused, because there's just onslaught of just shite online. Okay, excuse my language. You know, I try to keep my language clean here. So it's superior nutrition, the potato, the humble potato, or all underground storage organs. But today we're going to focus on the potato, our magic pill. He talks a lot about being overwhelmed with nutrition. I know that a lot of people are feeling very discouraged. Our rates of disease are increasing and they don't look good for the next few years. So if you are focused on your health, if you're focused and committed to making better eating habits just a part of your jam, then I applaud you. And I'm here to tell you that it gets easy eventually. The hardest part is starting. But John would say for many people that he has taught, people are completely overwhelmed. They're completely overwhelmed. And his advice is always to try to keep it simple, get really, really basic. So that has just hit me to the core. Like I thrive when I am a basic bitch. Okay. So when I keep things really simple, then that's when I thrive. Of course, life is not simple, it's very complicated. But on the whole, if you are feeling totally overwhelmed and you are not sure where the heck to even start, and you can be a simple bee like me sometimes, then John recommends that we stick to a sweet potato and water. Just eat sweet potatoes and drink water. You don't have to think about anything else. So, doesn't that kind of simplify things a little bit? I mean, I'm not going to live off of sweet potatoes and water, but if you had to, that is an option. If you wanted to try it, even for a day, then see what happens, right? He says that, of course, many people think that sweet potatoes and potatoes are very fattening, but in that lecture that's linked in the description, you will see if you actually watch it, and I highly recommend you do. If you watch it, he has this one screen where he's got these fake stomachs. They're glass stomachs, and he's got different types of food in each of those glass stomachs. And he's talking about the fat content in food, the fat content in like meat and cheese compared to butters and oils and margarines compared to rice or compared to potatoes. And he says that potatoes are only 1% fat, whereas meat and cheese is 60 to 70 to maybe 80% fat. So even if you have a lean cut of beef, it could be 60% fat. This blew my mind when I just started learning about plant-based nutrition or just like food. But he really just like takes it home for us, right? Because he's just so simple in his messaging and so direct. And then when it comes to oils, salad dressings, butter, 100% fat. So if you have a weight loss journey, then maybe cut that out and see what happens. Of course, he's famous for the saying, the fat you eat is the fat you wear. And the McDougallers love that. Other people can't stand that. But I find it very interesting that John would also say, if he took a needle and biopsied my hips and my butt and my thighs, and he took out the fat from my fat cells and looked at it. Is it trans fat? Is it like omega-3 fats? Like, what kind of fat is it? Is it saturated fat? He would be able to tell how I eat. So he would say from your lips to your hips. But I find that very interesting. So the fat that we consume, and he goes into this in the Starch Solution and some of his other books, but the fat that we consume, the body is so intelligent that we do not want to starve to death. So it tends to store that energy. And our fat cells can expand and expand and expand. And so, yeah, when we're eating the fat, of course, the metabolism of fat is terribly complicated, but essentially, John is just simplifying it. I know he used to get a lot of pushback about that statement, but I think where he's coming from, he's a medical doctor. He's helped thousands of patients over 50 years of being a medical doctor. And he needs to simplify it because we don't have the background and the knowledge that he does. So the fat you eat is the fat you wear is a simplified statement of cut down on how much fat we eat, and we might see the results that we want. He says that he almost died at 18. He had a massive stroke. He ate lots of meat and cheese, and he loved it. This is where I kind of feel like we are almost kindred spirits. I've almost always felt like that after I got to know him because he used to pack or he used to smoke 2 packs of cigarettes a day. He used to drink whiskey, a lot of it. He was way more hardcore than I ever could be. My body could definitely not handle that. And I too would have had a stroke. I have had a mini stroke in my early 20s, but I didn't go as hard as he did. So, it is so sad and actually quite shocking that he did pass away at only 77. However, I have to start looking at the brighter side of things and really listen to all this outpouring of love and support online and a lot of people are reminding one another that maybe he should have been gone at 18, but that's the thing that changed his life. He was actually going to go into the hotel industry, which I also laugh because I spent many years in the hotel industry. So it's almost like, thank God he had this stroke, because it spurred him to look into medicine, become a doctor. And he thought, man, these guys aren't telling me any information, so I could do that. So he became a doctor. But of course, he became obsessed with the information. He started treating patients. He wasn't successful, and that really hurt him. He despised feeling like such an ineffective doctor, and he wanted to help these people, not just maintain their sickness. So he went back to school. He became an internist, a board certified internist, and learned a whole bunch more. And that's when he came across the Starch Solution, which he has coined. But of course, he wanted to bring back that word starch, because that's what we should eat. He says we are sugar seekers, we are starch seekers, we're starchivores, we're starchitarians, whatever the heck you want to call it. I don't normally call myself that, but essentially that's what I am. But the fact that he was able to live almost another 60 years after that massive stroke at 18 is phenomenal. And he was very healthy. He swam with the freaking sharks. He was like a water person, ocean person, was not on any medications. He was so intelligent up until the very end. He was freaking prolific. Anyway, I'll tell you, the way that I met him, I saw that he was speaking at this Veg Fest in Orange County. So I thought, holy crap, John McDougall is going to be in Orange County. So I got to go. So I went, I stood in the back, and I looked at his presentation. I thought I could barely see anything on the screen. I have a marketing background, so of course I'm just so distracted. Like, we got to make these presentations better. They got to be clearer. So I waited until after the presentation. I went up to him. I said hello. I offered my help. I could tell that he gets this all the time. A lot of people, they owe their lives to the teachings of John McDougall, and he basically dismissed my offer. And eventually I just kept talking at him. Yes, at him. And eventually I caught his attention, and we exchanged emails, and I emailed him. One thing led to another. I helped him with a presentation. He didn't make a big deal out of it. Little did I know, this was a presentation for a Lifetime Achievement Award that he was receiving the next month. So I thought, holy crap. Anyway, he loved my work. He wanted to collaborate. And so I have been helping them with their marketing, because that's my first work love, marketing. Yeah, I love it. So we've done great things together. I'm so proud of what we've done. I know that he was really proud, and he was really happy. And so that warms my heart that I could contribute to such an incredible brand that also helps so many people on the most profound levels. Of course, I'm a little bit obsessed with food and nutrition and health, even though my habits aren't perfect, but I'm obsessed with learning how to take matters into our own hands and focus on what we can control. And I've just learned so much from John McDougall. He is, and has always been, even well before I met him, he's been my favorite of like the plant-based doctors of today, because he's hilarious. I think he's very funny. I love how powerful he is. I love how, I love that he's a real doctor, that he treats real patients, and he's not just a researcher. Obviously, we love our researchers and scientists, but there's just something very different about a healer who works individually with real humans. And so I've heard countless stories from him about this patient and that patient in this scenario and that scenario. I tie that in with everything that I've read and learned from him, everything that I've heard him lecture on. And he's just given me such an incredible foundation of knowledge. And actually, in his last live, which was like 2 weeks ago, he said that everything that he's ever learned and everything that he knows, he's put on his website, or it's on a video on YouTube. I mean, bless you, John. He is the most prolific person I've ever worked with. And I will never forget the first email that he sent me, because that thing popped into my inbox and it was one sentence and I was blown away. Like I felt a powerful energetic force hit me like a ton of bricks. And his statement was basically like, for the rest of my life, he is going to continue to spread his message of the starch solution to help the earth, to help our present and our future. Mostly for his grandkids, though. He was a very proud grandfather, and it was just so cute to see that. Don't you love that face on grandfathers when they talk about their grandkids? It's the cutest. Anyway, back to the potato. It's also shockingly the most highest satiety food of all foods. So if you think like what is the thing that creates the most satiation in us, all food wise, what would you say? I would have guessed chocolate, but it is actually the potato. The potato, like what the heck? It is the most satisfying food, and it's more satisfying based on this study than pasta, rice, and bread. That makes me very curious. And what I think is because, of course, pasta and bread, refined, even though they can be healthy. Rice, I would say most people probably eat white rice, not like a whole grain, like a brown rice. So I think the reason why potatoes are so satisfying, I don't know, because they have magic, because they are truly the magic pill. Sometimes when we eat the potato, we're like, why the heck is this thing so delicious? I don't understand why it hits on so many levels. But the fact that it's got the underground storage organ, all the nutrients that we need, when the human body is nourished, everything is connected. And so something is hitting our brains saying like, this is good. This is good for this body. Keep feeding it this. And when our nutritional needs are met, it hits completely differently. Oh, yeah. So I really think that that's why it's the most highest on the satiety index. It also beat out meat, cheese, and eggs. Like cheese? What? Of course, he says it's a very negative thing today in terms of eating starch and especially taters because of the company it keeps. Because, of course, we load it with fat or oil or butter or cheese or sour cream or bacon bits or just bacon, or we just deep fry it and then we season it with all kinds of stuff. Of course, like the potato is just so versatile. When I started working with John and his team, our daughter was having the worst bouts of eczema. And I later learned that all this like fake vegan crap is truly just like really, really crappy. And it was messing her up. This poor girl, poor girl. And so I learned from the McDougall team that all these vegan burgers, like I probably shouldn't name names, but all the vegan burgers, like that's an ultra processed food still, might be better for the environment, definitely better for the animals and all the rest. Studies have shown it's better for our cholesterol and better in other areas, but ultimately it's not a health food product. So tread lightly when we're eating those things if we have to. But anyway, I stopped bringing all of that stuff into the house because we did eat a lot of it. And because I was learning so much about the humble potato, I switched her breakfast to hash browns because the McDougall team gave me the idea of hash browns. Well, what do you know? Fast forward a few weeks, it happened pretty immediately. And then months later, her eczema cleared up. Like what? That was in like 2020. So 4 years ago, since 4 years, almost every morning, this girl is having hash browns for breakfast. Hash browns for breakfast. So there are people like Joel Furman, who is actually going to be live with Chef AJ at 2 p.m. Eastern time. And I love Joel Furman, but he is always talking about like a nutrient dense diet, which I 1000% believe in. But he talks about the nutritarian diet. The nutritarian diet is very different. It's not very different. It's a plant-based diet. It's a whole food plant-based diet, but he's much more into like get the fats in, like make sure you get the nuts and seeds in. He doesn't really talk about like anti-fat anything. So that's where they really differ. But John says that you can't just rely on vegetables. So although nutrient density is a good thing, you can't just rely on leaves and non-starchy vegetables. And that is something that I personally have seen for many years, people just mistaking eating more vegetables or becoming more vegetarian or becoming more plant-based or whatever it is they want. They think that it's all about eating the leaves and non-starchy veg. Of course, you're going to starve because it doesn't give us sufficient calories. So although that is an absolutely critical part of our overall health, what I've learned from the McDougalls is that starch is our new meat. So today everybody's like, do you want protein on it? What protein are you going to have in it? And many times I say, well, the protein that I'm going to have is already in the plants that I've ordered. And they always give me a blank stare, so I should probably stop saying that. But instead of where's the meat or where's your protein, I think where's the starch that has replaced, that's the thing. So if you are a newbie in the plant-based world, or you want to just eat less meat or eat less processed stuff, but you're worried about not eating enough or not getting enough nutrients, think of the starch. You might be amazed. So potatoes, they digest slowly. Okay, they digest slowly. They are actually a resistant starch also, which means that they are feeding all the good gut bacteria in our colon. Food gets eaten, goes through our esophagus, it goes through the little cardiac sphincter, it goes into our stomach, goes into our small intestine. In the small intestine, our body is reaping all the nutrients out and pulling it into our bloodstream. Once something is in the blood, of course, it's spreading throughout the entire body, nourishing the entire body. The resistant starch is getting passed into the large intestine or the colon, where it's feeding all of this good gut bacteria. This is absolutely essential to our health. And then that good gut bacteria is producing all these things that we need for our health. Short chain fatty acids is a huge thing that I don't believe our daughter was getting enough of. And that's why it was really aggravating her eczema, and her skin was so bad. It was so bad. Potatoes saved her skin. Potatoes saved her skin. They are also low in fat, like John McDougall says. It's like 1% fat. Punch it into Chronometer. You will be amazed at how low in fat these taters are. So when we think potatoes are fattening and I always gain weight, probably because we're eating them in the potato, like fries form, right? Deep fried foods or baked potatoes with lots of shredded cheddar cheese, butter, sour cream, yum, 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 bacon bits. But that's the company that is actually increasing our weight and our body size, not the potato. So we got to clear that up. We have to clear this up because it is so important. And the fact that they're complete nutrition. So I've never read or heard of a concept given by any doctor, plant-based or not, that simplifies human nutrition more than John McDougall's message of the magic pill, the tater. I once heard, so I've sat in on many McDougall programs, and I think that still today, and for many years coming, it is one of the most important services that are available to us. Thankfully, they're available worldwide because they're completely online. And I am very grateful for just having so much exposure to that. And one of the things that John repeatedly shares with his patients is that the body never stops healing. It never stops healing. So they have some elderly people coming in through their program, and many of them are like kind of in their 80s, and they'll flat out say, "Hey doc, like, is it too late for me? Is there any point in this?" But these people are they're determined. I love it. It's amazing. They're so strong. They may be taking like a bag of pills, but they're determined to wean off of them. They're determined to learn. They're determined to live better. They want to be around for their grandkids, or they just love life and they just want to keep on living here on earth, here. And so he always says it's not going to harm you. So I like that he's not overpromising and under-delivering, but he does say the body never stops healing. So it never tries to And it never stops trying to stay alive and to optimize, because that's how it is designed. And so many elderly people will feel a lot better once they change the way they eat. I want people my age, my generation. We're in this weird time right now where we're going to enter into menopause. Yes. I'm actually really looking forward to it. That's another thing that I learned about from John. He said that if you are in excellent health, menopause actually is not a negative experience. So that's how I fully plan on entering into this next phase in life and minimizing the havoc that our dying hormones give us. But yeah, I'm very grateful for all of that. And when I hear him say the body never stops healing, and you see all these instances of these people with all kinds of problems and they start feeling better because of the potato, it seems too good to be true, but it's true. And he always says the truth is simple and easy to understand. The truth is simple and easy to understand. The last thing I love, he says, I'm the luckiest doctor in the world because my patients get well. It's one of my favorite quotes. And one of my favorite quotes from one of his patients that I read was, this woman said, I trust Jesus Christ, my Savior, and I trust the McDougalls. It's hilarious. Hilarious. Anyway, I am very happy, and I feel very honored, and I've always felt very honored to have worked with John. He is the most passionate person I've ever worked with. He is the biggest badass I've ever worked with, and I've worked with some pretty hardcore badasses in my career so far, but never has anybody been so driven like John McDougall. He was up for anything. He was always open. He made decisions very quickly. He was the best person responding to your emails. He would always respond. He would respond very quickly within a few hours. And even though he was of the older generation, I worked with him on lots of technical things, and dang, he was quick. He was really, really quick. So I had a ton of fun working with him. He was extremely organized, and he had an eagle eye. And even though he's a medical doctor, and you can never expect a medical doctor to have like a design eye, he really did have a design eye. And so that was also a lot of fun. But he was just so exciting to work with because of his passion. And yeah. Anyway, magic pill. Body never stops healing. And he was the luckiest doctor in the world because his patients got well. Thank you, John McDougall. We'll see you next time.